I'm Rosie Hardy. This is Rosie Hardy Gardening. Welcome to the first May Q&A session. Thank you very much for sending in all these questions. It's good for me, it makes my brain work, and I really do enjoy helping people. So let's get started. Sue is making some raised beds for some annuals such as Cosmos and Cerinthium poppies. Just wanting to know what depth they should be, because she's going to be putting in things as well such as Aquilegia and sunflowers. I would always say 45 centimetres, 18 inches is your sort of minimum depth that you want to be going for. If you can afford to go deeper, then go deeper than that. That's probably the best for those types of things, especially as Aquilegia like to spread their roots out a bit and sunflowers do like to get their roots down. But if they get stopped, they will put on a mass of side roots as well. Next one. I have a huge old linden tree in the front of my garden next to the sidewalk, and was thinking of underplanting it with drought tolerance. It needs to be low maintenance. It just make it look better apparently than the dry dirt that's there. That's absolutely fine. Same, adding a little layer of compost, you can do that, but make sure that what you add is not a potting compost. You want to be using something like a farmyard, that type of mixture. So I would suspect that when you say a linden tree, you mean a tilia, and those get quite big and their roots can be near the surface as well. So something like Brunnera, Epimedium and the Geranium nodosum varieties should all do quite well. Now hopefully you can get hold of those in the area that you are situated. Someone else has got a Topiary Box ball in an oak barrel, and that is sitting covering a drain cover, and on the outside they've made this 24-inch wide, 60 centimetre wide bed, which is fine. That's absolutely good. And wanted to know what they could put in there. It's in full sun. Well, there are lots of plants that can go in there, but I would suggest things like Nepeta, Osteospermums, Anthemis cupaniana. That will give you a good contrast against that dark oak barrel, and also with your dark green foliage. So think of things which will contrast and show up against those. So lighter colours, grey foliages. And if you need to, fill in with annuals for the first year, because it always makes it look colourful, and then your perennials will then fill in as you go on through the years. My torch flowers and Echinacea never do well. I don't know why. My alliums, roses, salvias all seem to thrive. This sounds like a soil thing. It's not a problem. It's probably the fact either your soil is heavy, and it could be either acid or alkalinity problem there, which means that the Nephophyte and the Echinacea are not liking the same soils as your other plants. The best way to see whether you can actually grow both Nephophyte and Echinacea is put them into containers, and if they grow perfectly well for you in containers, then they're not enjoying what is in your soil, and therefore you either have to think of something else, other plant materials that look like those. So for Echinacea you could try Rudbeckia. There are some different forms out there. Is it okay to lift Narcissi now? Been put into a border to make the border look full, wanting to use the border now for loads and loads of perennials, don't want the Narcissi in the ground. That's absolutely fine. Yes, Narcissi can be lifted. You need to wait until the flowers are all over. You need to wait until the foliage is starting to die back. That means that it's starting to go yellow, and then make sure that you dig down quite deeply, because although you may have planted them at one level, they will have pulled themselves down a little bit further. And make sure that you dig out all of the bulbs, and then you can move them to their new home, which hopefully will then be where you're going to leave them, which is absolutely fine. But yes, it is possible to move them. Somebody's wanting to do a summer container with different succulents and doesn't want to kill them all off, and is wanting to know about watering, etc. The one thing that I would say is absolutely key to growing succulents in a container is not necessarily the watering, it is that you have got the drainage correct. So you are putting them into the correct type of soil or compost, whatever you're using, and that it's very, very sharp drainage. And then when you do water, it's you give them a big amount of water, as though they're getting a thunderstorm type effect, so lots of water, and then you leave them to dry out for a long period, because that is what they would get in nature. So you're not watering them all the time, you're giving them a big heavy water once every 3-4 weeks, and then you're leaving them to dry. But the key thing is that drainage when you first put them into the container that you're going to put them into. Someone here has always thought that they'd had vine weevil in their pots, but having watched my video and seen how small the vine weevil were, they realised that actually the bugs that they had got were chafer grubs. Now there are all sorts of different species of chafer bug out there, so depending on which one it is depends on what they eat. So some of them are only eating decaying matter, so therefore they're just eating through your compost or leaf litter or things like that. But then there are others that actually eat the roots of your plants. So you need to decide or have a look and find out exactly which chafer grub you've got. And then the ones which are just eating decay matter, don't worry about too much. The ones that are eating your plant roots, a little bit more problematic. They tend to be ones that are in the lawn far more. So if they're in pots, they tend not to be quite so bad. But it is always good to make sure that you repot regularly. Therefore, you can tell if any of these grubs have got in, and you can just get rid of them then and throw them onto your compost heap is probably a good thing, because they're quite good at chewing through the compost and helping that. Hope that helps you. Hopefully I have answered all your questions quite well. Please do send in more when we ask for them again. We will be doing another Q&A at the end of the month. Thank you very much for watching, and please do subscribe to the channel.